All right, so you've probably seen these crazy headlines about North Korean troops possibly popping up in Ukraine.
Yeah, it's pretty
I
wide.
mean, North Korean boots on the ground in Europe. It sounds straight out of like a Tom Clancy novel or something.
Right. Totally.
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
It might actually be happening, and if it is, it has huge implications for global security.
for sure.
So today we're doing a deep dive into this whole story, using excerpts from this ABC News report that breaks down the situation.
Cool.
We're going to go beyond the headlines,
Absolutely.
try to figure out if this is really going down, why Russia might be turning to North Korea for military help, and what it all means,
Yeah.
not just for the war in Ukraine, but potentially for you too.
It is certainly a bizarre situation,
Yeah.
and just the fact that it's even being considered.
Mhm.
It's just a sign of how complex and how volatile this whole situation in Ukraine has become.
So let's start with the evidence.
Okay.
What makes us think North Korean troops are actually in or heading to Russia?
Well, there's this video going around that appears to show individuals who look a lot like North Korean soldiers in Russia.
Huh.
And it's not just some grainy footage, from some random social media account or something.
Oh, okay.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has gone on record confirming that the U.S. has evidence of North Korean troops in Russia.
Wow. Okay.
Although he did add that the exact purpose of them being there isn't fully confirmed yet.
Okay, so we've got some video evidence and confirmation from the U.S. Defense Secretary.
Yeah,
This is starting to feel less like a conspiracy theory and more like a real possibility.
for sure.
So what are intelligence agencies saying about the number of troops involved?
Well, both Ukrainian and South Korean intelligence are estimating that there are about 12,000 North Korean troops potentially involved,
Wow.
with around 3,000 already on Russian bases for training.
So like already there.
Yeah, and Ukrainian intelligence believes that the first batch, roughly 2,600 soldiers, could be deployed to the Russian region of Kursk, a key strategic area where Ukraine has made recent gains, as early as tomorrow.
Oh, geez.
That would put them in direct confrontation with Ukrainian forces.
Wow, direct combat between North Korean and Ukrainian forces. I mean, that's a scenario nobody could have predicted a couple years ago.
Right.
But it begs the question, like, why is Russia, a nation that prides itself on its military strength, turning to North Korea for manpower?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
For sure.
To understand that, we need to look at the heavy toll that this war has taken on Russia's military.
Okay.
The Pentagon estimates that Russia has suffered around 600,000 casualties, with a significant portion of those occurring in recent months.
Jeez.
Those kinds of losses, both in manpower and equipment, they're just not sustainable.
So is this like a sign of desperation from Russia? Are they
Mhm.
so depleted that they have to rely on North Korea to, fill the gaps in their ranks?
Well, Secretary Austin certainly seems to think so.
Yeah.
He pointed out that Russia turning to North Korea for troops is a clear indication of the struggles they are facing in this conflict.
Yeah.
It highlights just how badly the war is going for them and their need to find soldiers from anywhere they can get them.
Wow.
But it's not just about replacing lost troops, though.
Right.
Bringing in North Korean soldiers has the potential to, fundamentally shift the dynamics of this whole conflict.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? What kind of impact could North Korean involvement actually have on the war?
Well, for one thing, it could really prolong the fighting.
Yeah.
More troops for Russia.
Mhm.
I mean, that means a potential for a longer, more brutal conflict.
Right.
And that means more casualties on both sides.
So more suffering, more destruction,
Yeah,
and potentially more risk of this conflict spilling over into neighboring countries.
that's certainly a concern.
Yeah.
It also sends a dangerous message to other nations that might be considering getting involved.
Right.
It signals that Russia is willing to go to any lengths to achieve its objectives,
Yeah.
even if it means partnering with a regime like North Korea.
You mentioned that Russia partnering with North Korea sends a message to other nations. Could this embolden North Korea to act more aggressively in other parts of the world, like in the Indo-Pacific region, where they've already been flexing their muscles?
That's a key concern that Secretary Austin highlighted.
Yeah.
North Korea has a history of provocative actions in the Indo-Pacific,
Yeah.
and this move could give them a sense of impunity,
Right.
potentially leading to further escalation in that region.
So we're not just talking about the impact on the war in Ukraine.
No.
We're talking about like potential ripple effects
Yeah,
that could destabilize other regions and draw more countries into the conflict.
exactly. This situation has the potential to touch all of our lives in one way or another.
Wow.
Think about global trade, energy prices.
Right, yeah.
These are things that could be significantly impacted by further instability and conflict.
It's almost like a domino effect.
Yeah.
One event triggering like a cascade of consequences that could be felt worldwide.
And that's why it's so important to stay informed
Yeah.
and, understand the complexities of what's unfolding. This isn't just some far-off conflict that doesn't affect us.
Right.
The world is interconnected.
For sure.
And what happens in one corner of the globe can have a real impact on our lives,
For sure.
even if it seems distant.
It's easy to get caught up in the headlines
Yeah.
and the immediate developments of this situation, but I think it's important to step back and consider the bigger picture, the long-term implications of this potential shift in the global power dynamic.
This situation raises some fundamental questions about the future of international relations,
Yeah.
the role of alliances,
Yeah.
and the potential for conflict in a world that is, increasingly interconnected.
It's a lot to take.
And it is.
12,000 North Korean troops might not seem like a massive number in the grand scheme of things,
Right.
but the implications are huge.
Yeah, it's like throwing a wrench into an already incredibly complex machine.
Right,
And remember, that's just the initial estimate.
right.
The fear is that this number could grow significantly over time, further escalating the conflict and its global impact.
Jeez.
There's also the question of what kind of weaponry or technology North Korea might be providing to Russia.
Oh, right.
That's another layer of complexity that we need to consider.
So if Russia is struggling as much as we've discussed, and they're turning to a nation like North Korea for support,
Yeah.
what does that say about their long-term prospects in this conflict?
It certainly raises questions about their ability to sustain this war effort,
Right.
but it also highlights their determination to achieve their objectives no matter the cost.
Hmm.
This is a dangerous combination, and it's why the international community is watching this situation so closely.
Okay, so we've talked about the evidence, the potential motivations, and the possible ripple effects.
Right.
But I think a lot of people are probably wondering, what does this all mean for me?
Yeah.
Why should I care about North Korean troops potentially fighting in Ukraine?
Well, aside from the obvious humanitarian concerns,
Yeah.
war is never a good thing. And more fighting means more suffering for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
It's about the potential for wider consequences. This situation has the potential to destabilize entire regions,
Yeah.
impact global trade, and even draw other countries into the conflict,
Right.
creating a much wider war.
So it's not just about what's happening in Ukraine.
No.
It's about the potential for a chain reaction that could have global consequences,
For sure.
affecting everything from the price of gas to the stability of our financial systems.
Exactly, and those are just a few examples.
Yeah.
The point is, this is a situation with far-reaching implications,
Yeah.
and it's important to understand how it could affect us all, both in the short and long term.
It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
Yeah.
We've got a potential powder keg in Eastern Europe, and it could explode in ways we can't even fully predict yet.
Right.
It's hard not to feel a little overwhelmed by it all.
I understand, but knowledge is power. The more we understand about what's happening, the better equipped we are to make sense of it, have informed conversations about it,
Right.
and maybe even influence the course of events in some small way.
I like that knowledge is power.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive observers in this situation. We have a role to play in shaping the future, even if it's just by staying informed and engaging in meaningful discussions about these complex issues.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of individual action. Staying informed, talking to your friends and family about these issues, and contacting your elected officials, those are all ways you can make a difference.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
if North Korea is willing to send troops to Ukraine,
Right.
what else might they be willing to do?
Exactly.
It's a pretty bold move, especially considering they're already a pretty isolated nation.
Yeah, it is.
Makes you wonder about their long-term goals.
It certainly does. Are they
Yeah.
are they simply seeking like financial gain from Russia?
Right?
Or are they hoping to gain something more on the world stage? Perhaps, recognition as like a significant military power. It's a risky gamble on their part,
Yeah.
especially considering the potential for,
Yeah.
further sanctions and international pressure.
It seems like a move that could easily backfire.
Right.
But then again, as you mentioned earlier, North Korea's never been one to shy away from, defying international norms.
That's right. And it's a reminder that we can't afford to underestimate them.
Yeah.
North Korea has repeatedly shown they're willing to take drastic actions
Yeah.
to achieve their goals.
Right.
Their motivations and calculations often differ from those of other nations.
Okay, so we've uncovered this whole complex situation,
Yeah.
explored the potential motivations,
Right.
and laid out the possible consequences.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of people are probably wondering, what can we as individuals actually do about all of this?
Right.
It feels like such a massive global issue,
It is.
and it's easy to feel powerless.
I understand that feeling, but uh, don't underestimate the power of staying informed.
Right.
The more we understand about these complex global situations,
Yeah.
the better equipped we are to engage in meaningful conversation,
Sure.
hold our leaders accountable,
Right.
and advocate for peaceful solutions.
Yeah.
Even just talking to friends and family about these issues,
Yeah.
it can raise awareness and contribute to a more informed public.
So basically, don't just scroll past those headlines,
Yeah,
Take the time to understand the issues,
absolutely.
educate ourselves,
Yep.
and use our voices to demand better from our leaders.
Exactly. And remember, this is a developing situation.
Right.
Things could change quickly.
Yeah.
So it's important to stay updated and be prepared for the unexpected. Keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Right.
And keep learning.
For sure.
It's the best way to navigate our increasingly complex world.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into this developing story. Remember, this situation highlights just how interconnected our world is.
It does.
And how events in one corner of the globe can ripple outward, affecting us all.
Absolutely.
Stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, stay curious.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us.